Hello everyone, time for another fun video, this time the top 10 card fights in Cardfight Vanguard G. So how I rank this list is based on how memorable the fight is, like the scenes involved, the characters, and even sometimes what hypes up the fight. And of course this is all based on my opinion and this is just how I rank them. And no more wasting time, so let's begin. For my number 10 spot, it's Henry versus Doomjin. One of my reasons why I love this fight so much is the matchup. Kagero versus Narukami. Both clans have similar characteristics of removing your opponent's rear guards. And it's also Fire Dragons versus Thunder Dragons as well. And that was awesome. Not only that, Henry was a monster in this fight, which I really wish he won the fight, but unfortunately he didn't, which is why it's ranked low for me. But to the fight itself, I like how both players are nuking each other's fields. Henry removed Doomjin's rear guards on his first stride turns, and then Doomjin does the same thing for his next turn, with Henry striding V-Buster once again with an even bigger attack, with a triple trigger, two of them being crits, causing Doomjin have to guard each one of his attacks. Doomjin getting pissed off every time Henry makes a bigger move and nearly beating him. Not only that, I love his passion for this fight, and even his acknowledgement of him not being as experienced as his teammates. It's just too bad he did lose the fight, but overall the fight is enjoyable. Number 9. Shion vs Kai, Heroes Crisis Episode 24. This was definitely one of those most anticipated fights, because Shion lost everything relating to his family, and Kai was there to step up to help him rise once again. Shion lost to him more than 10 times, but he never gave up even though it was all hopeless, which of course started his rise during the season. He fought Kai again, this time against his Narukami deck, as a test, with huge improvements but still lost, so this being his big match with Kai using his Kageros telling that he's serious was very expected, and I really like Shion strategizing this fight. Rather than playing defensive against Kai, he goes full offensive, which also took advantage of his Brave at the same time. I like the Legend turn, which caused Shion to have all his rear guards nuked with an empty field, but even with that, Shion rises back up and counters, and then Kai tries to finish it with Novel Vega Express, which Shion survived, and then he uses Clotaneous as his final turn, even declaring it, and finishes the game with 5 crits. Number 8. Chrono vs Shiranui, next, episode 50 and 51. First off, before the fight, I like how Kazuma entrusts everything to Chrono to bring back his brother, and I like Shiranui's acknowledgement of Chrono's strength. Also, flashbacks of Shiranui along with how he got the evil eye. The first Shiranui Mercuro turn, follow up with the Gear next turn, with Chrono's acknowledgement that without Shiranui he wouldn't even be in the tournament, and all those flashbacks, with Shiranui trying to understand what Antero meant about human potential, and even responding back to Chrono with his Vanguard. And in the second Shiranui Mercuro turn, we got the shot of his whole clan rising up, and Shiranui was able to hear their voices, finally understanding that the curse is not even on Vanguard, which of course Chrono survives the turn and makes his final turn with Beyond Order Dragon, which is what I like about this fight, by the way. It's cards that already exist and we already know of, not some new hype up card to finish the fight. So that's a bonus for this fight as well. The interaction between Chrono and Chrono Dran, with Shiranui acknowledgement of his failures, with his final moments with Kazumi acknowledging his faults. So yeah, overall, I like Shiranui in this fight, and the fact that they're using existing, already known cards at the time, and not some new hyped up card to finish the game. And also Beyond Order Dragon is always awesome. Number 7. Kazuma vs Shiranui, next, episode 34. This was definitely a hyped up fight. There were already many flashbacks from Kazuma losing to his older brother Kazumi, who is currently being possessed by Shiranui but Kazuma doesn't know it, in where Kazuma lost too many times to Kazumi's, always seeing him much better than him, and this is finally the day where he finally gets to test his skills. And during the fight itself, I like how Kazuma is acknowledging his faults, and it also acknowledges how Chrono and Tile changed him. You know what I also really like about this fight is Shiranui using Kazumi's memories to taunt Kazuma. Dominate is always fun to see, and also despite being in the face of his brother, When he's about to lose to him again, he decides to take the 6 damage and hope for a heal trigger, which he does, making his second drag driver Luar turn, which of course fails, causing Shiranui's second Mujin Lord turn to dominate his whole entire field, which I absolutely love the shot, and then all those flashbacks of him losing, and him losing to an attack by his own unit, which I like for some reason. So yeah, help that fight, dominate, and Kazuma. Number 6, Ibuki vs Ryuzu. Another very anticipated fight, and also one of my favorite matchups because it's a creator god versus a gear chronicle god. And I also like this fight mainly because of Ibuki as well. Ibuki is currently the Messiah Vanguard, who's trying to redeem himself from his past sins of trying to erasing Vanguard. I love those flashbacks of him trying to redeem himself, going out of his way to even meet Chrono's father, and doing whatever he can to save Vanguard. And also his acknowledgement of Chrono's strength with the damaged necklace he had. And then we got the Chrono Tiger Rebellion turn, which I liked, follow up with the Exilix Messiah turn, which I also liked, with Ryuzu's final turn and his 12 card bind being Chrono Dran, bringing out Domir Ghosts, which always looks gorgeous to me, and godly. It's just too bad it has a shitty effect for its condition. And after losing the fight, I love all those flashbacks and callbacks, with his last amounts of strength to bring out Chrono Dran back to Chrono, which is also what I like about this fight. Ibuki is doing whatever he can to stop Ryuzu, but if he cannot do it, he could at least believe in Chrono, which is another reason why he fought Ryuzu. If he fails, he could at least bring Chrono Dran back to Chrono and trust him to finish everything. So he was also doing this for Chrono as well. So yeah, mainly Ibuki and the reveal of Domir Ghosts. Number 5, Kazumi vs Gize. Fitting role reversal when Kazumi was still under Shiranui's control and Kazuma was trying to save him. The fight itself is pretty good. Kazumi trying to reach out to Kazuma. Love the shots when the Xerath Dragons get bound, they appear somewhere around the world. Kazumi and Shiranui fighting together. The Drag Abyss Luard turn, which follows up with the Shiranui Rine turn. And then we go to the turn with the return of Gize. And I really like how Gize taunts Kazumi about not being able to help Kazuma and how much he hated the responsibility of the Orimaru family and rather just have fun, and how Kazuma helped him with that. And then when Kazuma failed in his final turn, Gize's skill activate, which I love the shot of the towering Xerath dragons with Gize and Shiranui standing alone. So overall, it's a pretty good fight. Now my only problem is, I really think Kazumi's big fight should have been against Gasteel, and the return of Gize fight should have been against Ibuki, both for revenge purposes. But unfortunately what we got is what we got. Number 4, Ibuki and Chrono versus Gasteel. First off, this is one of my favorite matchups, mainly because it's the leaders of each faction going against each other. Gasteel wants revenge against Messiah, all the more reason why this matchup was going to happen. So he sets up a field where each time the Messiah Vanguard is closer to 6 damage, they're going to start dying. So there are consequences if Ibuki loses, and of course that makes Gasteel going to lose this fight, which is what lowered this down on my list. And to the fight itself, I really like the turn where Gasteel rides himself and taunts Ibuki, and then Ibuki's response to him with a shot of Chrono running around trying to look for him. It was pretty effective to me. The bottom turn was pretty devastating to him, and barely able to stand because of his heart attack, Chrono comes in and saves the day. And this is where one of my reasons why I like this fight. Chrono playing Ibuki's deck and fighting for him, which is believable too because they're rivals, and Chrono does know Ibuki's playstyle, and we also got all those callbacks, like a fight reveals everything about a person, or the callback where Ibuki was helping Chrono, and we also get to see how effectively Chrono plays Ibuki's deck with the Ballistic Messiah turn, which of course follows up with Gasteel's Xerath Dragon turn, which of course if Chrono loses this fight, not only Ibuki will die, Chrono will also become the vessel, so meaning they cannot lose at all. And then after Gasteel's final turn fails, Chrono of course strides Harmonix Neo Messiah, and I really love how both of them declare the attack together and finish the game that way, which is how I expected it. Now, a few issues what I have with this fight, despite being really good. The super high stakes, which forces our heroes cannot lose at all, and this also being Gastio's debut fight, so we didn't even get much of him. And when Chrono was playing Ibuki's deck, I was kinda expecting Ibuki to help him out a little bit, rather than Chrono understanding every single card that Ibuki has. But nonetheless, it's a good fight, and I like the fact that Chrono and Ibuki are fighting together in this one. Now, my number 3, Aichi versus Chrono. First, I'm going to get the obvious one out of the way. It's the battle between the current protagonist and former protagonist, which is always a plus for me. And not only that, this was also a slice of life fight, which I enjoy, which also adds some unpredictability in this fight because they're both protagonists, so we don't know exactly who was going to win this fight, although I already predicted it before the episode was aired. We also got callbacks with Kamui's point of view, and Chrono acknowledging that Aichi's completely different every time he card fights, which of course, to the fight itself, I really like the Myriad Soul Saver turn, and then the Gear Groovy turn, along with the callback of Chrono's first fight when he was first playing the game, and Chrono seeing the same vision as Aichi, which I really like because it's interaction between our protagonists. And of course Chrono's turns fail, and of course finally we get the Alfred Holy Saber, and then of course Aichi wins with Blaster Blade because Blaster Blade, so overall, it's a fun fight. But I do wish that there was a second match between these two for a ceremonial fight where to exculpate the Blaster G unit, but unfortunately we never got that. I've enjoyed the slice of life aspect in this fight, and it's a battle between protagonists, but unfortunately the next two, in my opinion, are better than this fight. And now number 2, Chrono vs Kamui, Gears Crisis episode 25 and 26. This fight, in my opinion, is gorgeous. The choreography was amazing. Not only that, this is the fight where Chrono finally shows that he is strong enough to take on Kamui. We of course got all those callbacks from the beginning of the series, and I really love the water splashing behind them after when they make their big attacks. And then we get Kamui's point of view on how he doesn't want Chrono to be doing on anything that could be world ending, and that people that are surrounding him always have something heavy burned before them, which of course gives him more of a reason for him to win as well, to stop Chrono from doing such a heavy burn. Which of course we go to the second Bastard turn, and when he tried to do the final blow, I really loved the big final attack that goes from space. I always love those look awesome. Which of course fails, and Chrono of course will finally try to surpass Kamui and use his Warp Drive Dragon. And I like how Kamui acknowledged himself as an idiot as well, not seeing Warp Drive Dragon coming, and Chrono acknowledging that if it wasn't for Kamui, he wouldn't even be standing there right now, and even praised that his final attack will succeed and finally defeat Kamui, which of course Kamui acknowledges that he's strong and decides to take the attack, knowing that he cannot even block the rest of the attacks. So yeah, nice animation, the battle between a student and a master, and a lot of callbacks, and a very hyped up match since the beginning of the show. And before I go to my number 1, honorable mentions, Taio vs Tokoa. Nice shiny new gold paladins were awesome, Tokoa making huge ass numbers with Bloom, and a big surprise, Taio actually won the fight with Stand Trigger for the win. Chrono vs Kanzaki. I like that they strategized in this fight, the ribbons representing all of Tri 3 fighting together, the shot of Aura Geyser Dragon's attack being blocked, the Aura Geyser Doom turn, Taio cheering for Chrono leaving the United Sanctuary branch, the next stage turn, and the final shot of Chrono Jet punching Kanzaki, and Kanzaki resigning, thus acknowledging Tri 3, and breaking the laws of physics. Shion vs Shiranui, episode 42, Shion choosing Shiranui's Genesis field for the battlefield, Shiranui's taunting, the Vanguard turn and blowing all the flames away, and then Shion striding aerial divine knight alt mile which lights back all the torches. Kamui vs Ghidorah. A fun fight, favorite matchup, stand versus no stand, fancy new victors, Ghidorah's marriage proposal, and the favorite champ victor turn, Chrono vs Gize. Gize's debut fight, fancy new Luard, Chrono using a Xerath Dragon, and Gize using the United Sanctuary Xerath Dragon. And then finally, Aichi and Kai vs Chaos Breaker. Mainly because this one is a big fan service, and it's also the very first 2-on-1 fight since the Neon Messiah movie. And now to my number 1, it's Chrono vs Ryuzu, Strikegate 48 and 49. This was obviously one of the most hyped up matches since the beginning, since Ryuzu has been foreshadowed as the main villain. This fight also has some similarities between Aichi vs Ren for being opposites, and Aichi vs Reverse Takedo because fighting a godlike being. And I did forget about in the Ibuki fight, every time that Ryuzu binds a Zodiac Time Beast, the wheel turns. I like that gimmick. Chrono calling out Ryuzu for forcing his ideas on everybody, but Ryuzu of course responds with something like people will always be fighting each other, and he's trying to end all of that with the Chrono Tiger Rebellion turn. And I also love the shot of the real Chrono Jet Dragon versus the real Chrono Fang Tiger. Really love that shot. And Chrono's Chrono Dragon next stage turn, along with some realization that everyone's life will just be the same, no changes, and without Vanguard he wouldn't be here, along with moving on to places that he doesn't even know about, with of course Ryuzu's final turn bringing out Domirgos, and using its skill to stack the top of your deck, symbolizing the perfect future, and that everything is set in stone, and then Chrono destroying that set in stone future by using Head Roll Round Dragon to shuffle his opponent's deck, which today I still laugh. And even after the deck was shuffled, Ryuzu still believes that the future is still set in stone, which of course he fails, and Chrono acknowledges that Ryuzu is right on some things, and he doesn't know everything about pain and suffering. And I love his speech on Vanguard, which is what helped him meet his friends. And he even acknowledges that pain and suffering might not disappear, but wants to believe in possibilities. Which of course we go to Chrono's final stride turn, which in my opinion is the best stride in the whole entire show, with the shot of Chrono Jet powering up, and everyone giving their stride force to Chrono. That one shot of Kanzaki punching his Geyser statue was awesome, with a lot of character cameos, with the best one obviously being Aichi, and also the shot of all his friends that were in the stride gate standing side by side with Chrono, with the last stride pose in the series giving out Chrono Dragon Gear Groovy, which I kinda like Gear Groovy's design on its own, representing different possible timelines. And I also like the fact that the Cardfight G theme was playing during this whole entire turn, with Chrono calling out Ryuzu of course, of his lack of imagination, Chrono Jet delivering the final blow, Chrono moving between the space-time continuum looking thing, Ryuzu acknowledging that he's a hypocrite for using violence when he was trying to stop it, thus bringing judgment upon himself. So yeah, best fight in the show in my opinion, with a lot of memorable scenes. So that's it for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. This is probably going to be one of my longest top 10 videos I made, because there was a lot of things I liked in the show. And this list was of course difficult because there was actually a good amount of decent fights in the whole entire show, that it was hard to pick the top 10 list for me in the first place. But I've done it, and so go ahead and tell me what are your top 10 fights in Cardfight Vanguard G. I just told you mine, so go ahead and tell me yours. But other than that, have a nice day.